questions to come up with the right answer together. And that is the approach that I'm going to take as governor. It's going to be inquisitive. It's going to be data-driven. It's going to be collaborative. But I absolutely agree with you that we need to be spending resources to take care of everyone in the community and not just a certain subset of folks.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask also about economic development. Some critics have said it's been unequally brought to places like Middle Tennessee or maybe to Memphis. What would be your approach to bringing in companies? We've seen an influx of companies from Amazon to Oracle coming in, which have brought the promise of six-figure jobs, but typically a lot of the homegrown residents don't tend to benefit from that. What would you do to address that?
So, again, big question. So the folks who work in economic and community development here in the state of Tennessee have a huge job. They go all over the world bringing companies to our state. And there are a lot of things that draw companies here. And I'm talking about our natural resources, our geographic proximity to most of the United States quickly by air. We actually have a port, if you don't know that. We're connected by rail down to Savannah. So we have a port that we're close to. In terms of production. So all of those things are helpful to us. One of the things that I am told in conversations is that we need to be more friendly to marginalized communities. That sometimes companies, they may have some hesitations about relocating here because of some of the slate of hate that we've seen come through the General Assembly, right? Is this a place where we want to bring our families? Is this a place where we want to tell our workers that they're going to have to raise their children? I believe in a Tennessee that works for everyone. I believe in a Tennessee that no matter the color of your skin, how much money you have in the bank, who you choose to love, what your native tongue is, Tennessee should be a land of opportunity for you. That's the Tennessee I'm fighting for, and I hope that's the Tennessee you're willing to fight for too, because that's the Tennessee that's going to build prosperity for everyone across the state, regardless of whether you're in a city or a county, in a rural community. And then I always want to fall back on the things I told you previously. Education, healthcare, infrastructure. You got to have those in place everywhere to grow the economy.
Before I get to my final two softer questions, I did want to ask you about a situation that's happened in Tennessee over the last 2 years, which is addressing what's known as divisive concepts and the opportunity to eliminate curriculum or books and resources from public libraries and school libraries. Would you talk a little bit about your position on this issue, and if elected governor, what would you do?
So, obviously we have to chip away at the General Assembly's supermajority to bring them to the table, because right now they're passing legislation that is not consistent with our values. I mean, they're just not, and they're damaging our children. I had a chance to have dinner with a teacher from East Tennessee who lost his job for teaching a divisive concept. He basically asked his kids to respond to an essay. He didn't tell them what to write. He didn't tell them what to think. He just said, read this and respond to it. He lost his job. And this is a gentleman who had gone to this particular high school, grew up in that community, went off to college, got a certificate, came back, was devoting his life to serving his community, and they got rid of him in a heartbeat. That's wrong. And you know, the fear and the hesitation that puts in the minds and the hearts of our teachers right now is devastating to our communities. Y'all, we got 1,000 open teacher positions in the state of Tennessee. I saw it in the news yesterday. Who wants to take that job when you've got the heavy hand of the government looking over your shoulder, or hanging over you? Got them breathing down your back all the time while you're trying to do your job with limited resources. So I think we need to, we need to speak out against editing libraries. For goodness sake, why are we attacking librarians in 2022? Why are we attacking our public servants? It's unimaginable to me that we've gotten to this place. And so I think it's time that we turn down the volume, speak out against it, and get these guys out of the General Assembly so we can make some changes.
This is a question I've asked the candidates in every part of the state. So hopefully they've done some of their work and research on the cultural institutions and restaurants here. One or two places that you say visitors need to come to when they experience Pulaski or Giles County or the surrounding area?
Actually, I knew this was coming. No, but it was easy for me because we were here last winter and we met in the town square, and there was a farmer's market going on. It was a weekend morning. And please help me find the lady who made the cinnamon honey butter. That was so good. And we got some fresh pastries from her that morning, and that was a highlight for me too. Obviously is it the Middle Tennessee State Fair, that's a big deal. We brought, no, is that? Yeah, that's right. It's one kind of north of here, right? Yeah. But it's in the region, and it's super fun. We brought the kids down for that before too. But yeah, I love a walkable community. I love a community where you can go around and buy crafts and goods from folks who are just making it with their hands. And so I enjoyed that moment.
Then my final question before I turn it over for any closing statement from you is, name a person who's had a deep influence on your life, and what's a lesson you could share with the audience?
So I've talked about this before, but I want to mention my grandmother. Her name is May to me, Mary Stevens. She might be watching tonight, actually. She tunes in to most of these forums. She's in her early 90s, and she had some challenges in her life that I think that she overcame, and I think make her a tremendous example for resilience for my three daughters. She was a stay-at-home mom, worked in the house, and my grandfather, he passed away from a brain tumor in the 1970s. So they were, young adults, middle-aged to young adults. I think they're in their 40s. It's getting younger and younger. My mom and her sister were in their teens. And so here she was, a homemaker her whole life. In the 1970s, now a different time, with two teenage daughters alone. And, they were working people. My grandfather was a lineman for the power company. They weren't rolling in money. This man's industry at the time, and was selling shingles to contractors, and ended up being very successful and had a great career, and was able to provide for her family. And she has told me that when things happen and when you fall down, you got to dust yourself off and get up and keep going. What a powerful lesson. And not only just to say the words, but to walk the walk. And I love to hear her talk about those times to my daughters, and to tell, because I think it's such a great example for them, because they will have hard times in their life, and I hate that, but they will have powerful examples too from my grandmother.
Yay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jason Martin. Before I turn it over to you to make final remarks, just a reminder that tomorrow, Friday, July 15th, is the start of early voting over the next 2 weeks. And you have Election Day on August 4th, so please go and vote during this period. Dr. Jason Martin, back to you for some final remarks.
Yeah. David, thank you so much for hosting these events, and thank you all for attending. Thank you all for coming to listen to a guy who has never done this before. Speak from the heart. I tell people I am not the most polished speaker that you will see tonight probably, but I am speaking the truth as I see it, and I hope that means something to you. One thing I want to tell you, people ask me all the time in this experience, what have you learned? What's the take-home lesson for you? And for me, it's that as I've visited all 95 counties in the state of Tennessee, 30,000 miles up and down I-40, it's that we have so much more in common than that which divides us, you all. We really do. We really do. And that's how we're going to make a difference in this race. That's how we're going to win this race. We're not going to focus on divisions. We're not going to take the bait when the other side tries to raise the volume. I'm a healer. I'm not a name caller. I'm not a flamethrower. My job is to turn the volume down, work with who's ever there, and get things done for the state of Tennessee. And so here's my ask for you tonight. I need you to vote. We are in the bottom 40s in the nation when it comes to registering voters. We're in the bottom 40s in the nation when it comes to turning out registered voters at the polls. We have to push back against that for all of our sakes. And I ask you to vote for me. I ask for your support in this primary and then in the general election so that we can take care of one another, because we believe in a Tennessee that works together, because together we're going to thrive. Thanks, you guys.
Well, thank you for coming. Thank you, Brent, for being here. And at the same time, I'm very grateful as well to our technical team, Abby Stanton and Kevin Hood, and also Jeremy Harmon, who's here doing the live stream. At this time, I'd like to call up the candidates for U.S. House District 4, Wayne Steele and Arnold J. White, please. Let's make sure first to test. The mics are working. You could just say, give me a test 1, 2, 3.
1, 2.
Perfect.
1, 2, 3.
All right, excellent.
Test.
All right, well, thank you very much, and welcome to the second portion of the USA Today Network Tennessee Election Candidate Forum. We're delighted to host this with the University of Tennessee system, and we're here today at UT Southern in Pulaski, Tennessee in Giles County. We are in District 4, which is in this southern part of Tennessee, in the middle part of Tennessee, and we have two candidates who are running for the Democratic primary. I want to introduce Wayne Steele of Fayetteville, Tennessee, a small business sole proprietor, is a licensed massage therapist for 12 years, who had stints working for the U.S. Census Bureau and most recently worked as a COVID contact tracer. And we have Arnold J. White of Smyrna, Tennessee, who's retired after 36 years at BFS Bridgestone, Firestone, and other jobs before that. The format itself is this. We're going to have each candidate give up to a 90-second opening statement, and then each question they'll get 60 seconds. I'll be your timekeeper up here, so politely tell you when time is up. And then we'll end with a 90-second closing statement. You are welcome to use the whole time or just a portion of that time. At this moment, what I'd like to do is ask Mr. Wayne Steele to start with an opening statement, to introduce yourself to the audience, both in person here at UT Southern and also in the live stream.
Well, thank you for having me here tonight to introduce ourselves and talk about the issues. Like Mr. Plaza said, I'm Wayne Steele from Fayetteville, Tennessee. Born and raised 7th generation Tennessean. Massage therapist of 12 years. About 20 years in healthcare, and been a sole proprietor for about 12. Many people might ask how a massage therapist would equate to being a congressman. But I've worked with people from, lived in poverty, but also worked with people all the way to taking my massage table into multi-million-dollar homes. So I have a lot of experience working with people in rural areas and metropolitan areas to know what the issues are, what the issues that we live.
Thank you very much. And Arnold J. White, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. I'd like to open my opening statement with 2 quotes and 1 tweet from last week. Quote number 1, when the answer is simple, God is speaking. That's Albert Einstein. Quote 2, an invasion of armies can be resisted, but not an idea whose time has come. That's Victor Hugo. And the tweet was, if a politician is asking you for votes or money, you can ask them for a plan. Pressure makes us better. That's from AOC. I am running for Congress so I can publicly share several simple ideas that I know will help solve humanity's most pressing and most important problems. And the most pressing problem facing humanity is global warming and climate change. According to the latest IPCC report, look it up, we must cut our oil use in half within the next 8 to 10 years in order to have any chance of stopping and reversing climate change and global warming. And the most effective thing we can do to achieve that 50% reduction in oil is converting the 1.5 billion fossil fuel vehicles
Thank you
on
very
this
much.
planet.
Thank you very much. So the 2 gentlemen, Mr. Steele and Mr. White, are running for the Democratic primary on August 4th. Their opponent is unopposed, U.S. Representative Scott Desjardins, Republican, who is the incumbent, He was invited, but his office informed me that he could not attend due to his being in session in Congress today. The next several questions, you'll have 60 seconds each to respond, and we'll go back and forth. We'll start with Mr. White. And this question is, Representative Scott Desjardins, who's been in Congress since 2011, is unable to be here today, but he comfortably won his 2020 election with 66% of the vote. First, how are you appealing to Democrats to win your primary? And finally, if you win the nomination, how will you appeal to all District 4 voters? Essentially, how will you win?
I will win by getting more votes than my opponent. How to do that? Well, you have to try. My name is on the ballot. I have a chance. If my name was not on the ballot, I would have no chance. And it will be a miracle if I do win both the primary and the election. But I have faith in that goodness will always prevail.
Keep on going, you still have time, I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
Keep on going, you still have time.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm just trying. I am not a politician. I do not have the education to be considered a politician, and that might be a good thing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Steele, same question for you. So the question is again, Scott Desjardins has been in Congress since 2011. What are you doing to ensure that you can first win the nomination for the Democrats and then beat Representative Desjardins?
Well, throughout this primary season, I have went to, I believe it's about 13 of the 15 counties in this district. I've went to multiple Democratic Party monthly meetings to engage local voters to hear what their issues are. I am also a man of statistics. I have a science background, so I know what math is like that we're facing against Desjardins, either one of us. The way that I would engage during the general, though, is that unlike many people that we have, our country's come to tear each other apart and separate ourselves from people who we don't agree with politically, and separated ourselves from Trump voters or Democratic voters or whatever. I've not done that. I know and have known how to continue to speak to Republican.
Thank you very much. Would you like to finish your thought?
Just that, I lost it now.
All right. Well, then we'll start with you, Mr. Steele, and then with Mr. White. Inflation has reached the 40-year high, rising to more than 9% year over year. Ordinary citizens are struggling to pay higher gas prices and grocery bills. What can you do if you're elected to Congress to improve the quality of life of citizens? We'll start with Mr. Steele.
First off, I do agree that with the bill and legislation to help lower Medicare and prescription drug costs, you have to offset what people are paying right now because the corporations are taking advantage of Americans and driving up the price of gas to try to hurt Democrats, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Then, Mr. White, again, what can you do if elected to Congress to improve the quality of life of citizens given the record high inflation?
Several years ago, I had the idea of how you can power electric vehicles without batteries, how you can power them by compressed air. And I could go into that, but it would take up most of the time. But I believe the most expensive part on an EV are the batteries. If you could eliminate that, you could drop the cost of EVs by 20, maybe 30% or more. And imagine never having to buy gas again and never having to pay out thousands of dollars to replace your batteries when they are worn out. My idea, I'm not an engineer, but I know it will work because there are 2 cars right now that are being built that you can combine the drivetrain from those 2 cars and it'll work.
Thank you very much. The next question will start with Mr. White and then go to Mr. Steele. Members of Congress are considering codifying abortion rights into law after the Supreme Court ruled to overturn Roe versus Wade. How would you vote on this proposal and why, Mr. White?
I would vote yes to codify. I believe that every woman has a right to make that decision on her own and with her doctor. These laws that are outlawing abortion and outlawing choice only affect the poor women. Rich women have never had a problem obtaining any medical care that they need, including abortions. They can go overseas. They can do what they need to do. These will only affect the poorest of the poor. And this is a travesty, and it will not stand. I would vote to codify it.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Steele, the same question for you.
Yes, I would vote to codify it into congressional law. The problem that I have with the thought of that is that we have to think in today's terms that Dobbs is the new precedent. Roe is not the precedent anymore, unfortunately. And so the reality is that if we pass that in the House and Senate and the president signs it, then red states that have made abortion virtually illegal are just going to file a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of this new federal law. And they're going to stand on states' rights argument, and they're going to say that Dobbs is the precedent. The same Supreme Court is going to decide this. And so my solution and vision is a constitutional amendment, reintroducing the Equal Rights Amendment and codifying abortion into the Constitution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Steele. Appreciate it. The next question will start again with Mr. Steele. And Congress recently passed bipartisan gun legislation. How would you assess this law? Too far? Not enough? What would you have changed? Mr. Steele.
It did not include red flag laws, correct?
It included incentives for the states to, but it didn't require red flag laws.
Okay. I don't think that it went far enough, because one of the arguments was that one of the shooters had a history from his childhood of violent tendencies. Well, under red flag laws, you would have record of this, or you would have a way of reporting this as an issue so that people couldn't get a gun. I'll admit at first I wasn't for getting rid of AR-15s, but after Uvalde, if we were supposed to use those to fight a tyrannical government, and that government isn't even going to protect us in our schools, then I don't really see a point of why people need them.
Thank you very much. Mr. White, the same question for you. On the bipartisan gun legislation, did it go too far, not far enough, and what do you like, didn't like about it?
It's a constant progression of moving forwards. We have to find a way to control people who should not be, folks who should not have access to guns should not have access to guns. Law-abiding citizens should, always, but they should be, the very first words of the Second Amendment are well-regulated. We need to regulate guns. If you want to go fishing, you have to have a license. If you want to go hunting, you have to get a license. You want to drive, you have to have a license. If you're mentally...
Were the babies on both sides? Ergo, I'm the baby grandchild on both sides. So I never got to meet him. He died about 12 years before me. But he's somebody that I think about because he was born in 1910. He was 8 years old or so whenever the Spanish flu started. And he was illiterate his entire life. He only signed his name with an X. And to go from him to in 2 generations to myself, who has made it through so much college and university education, and is sitting here before you running for Congress, is something that it weighs heavily on me with history.
Thank you very much. Now we come to the point of the final comments, and before I turn it over to the candidates, just a reminder that Friday, July 15th, tomorrow, is the start of early voting. It's a 2-week period that goes on here in Tennessee. You'll have all sorts of elections, from your state primary elections, gubernatorial, congressional. There may be some local general election races that are coming up. And then, of course, you have the August 4th election day. So please go out and vote. And now let's end with first Mr. White and then Mr. Steele. Concluding statements. You have 90 seconds each. Mr. White.
The second most pressing issue facing America and all democracies of the world is that of honest, verifiable elections. Without HVEs, the only real right you have is the right to remain silent. But do not despair. There is a way to guarantee your vote will be counted exactly as you cast it. And here's how that works. First, we only use EVMs that after we have selected our choices, the EVM prints out a paper trail ballot receipt that we check for accuracy. And if it is correct, we push the vote button on the EVM, which causes it to count and tabulate our votes inside the EVM. Then we take our paper trail ballot receipt and run it through a scanner that is separate from and unconnected to the EVMs. And after the election is over, if the totals on the EVMs and the scanners do not match, or even if they do, as a triple check on accuracy, all parties together on camera hand count the paper trail ballots there at the polling place. This simple system will always guarantee us 100% accurate election tabulation results. When the answer is simple, God is speaking. Albert Einstein.
Thank you very much, Mr. White. Mr. Steele.
Well, I'm a man of simple words. I'll leave you with the story of the man in the ring from Teddy Roosevelt. When was the last time you had a Democrat who actually fought for you? When was the last time you had a Democrat who got in the ring and kept getting back up? No matter how bloodied or toiled or bruised or battled. Vote for me, Wayne Steele. My website is Steele for Congress, Steele the number 4 Congress.us. And remember, when you're voting and telling your friends about me, that Wayne Steele is in the ring for them.
On behalf of the USA Today Network Tennessee, my name is David Plazas, Opinion Engagement Director. Please stay informed with your local media. Please invest in your local journalists across the state. Thank you so much to the University of Tennessee system, and especially the University of Tennessee Southern, who has hosted us so generously today, and to the audience here in the room and virtually. We thank you.